Inflation is hurting American families and eroding wages. People are adjusting spending even on basic necessities.
Please proceed, Secretary Yellen.
We currently face macroeconomic challenges, including unacceptable levels of inflation, as well as the headwinds associated with the disruptions caused by the pandemic's effect on supply chains and the effects of supply-side disturbances to oil and food markets resulting from Russia's war in Ukraine. To dampen inflationary pressures without undermining the strength of the labor market, an appropriate budgetary stance is needed to complement monetary policy actions by the Federal Reserve. In the administration's fiscal 23 budget, we suggest smart, fiscally responsible investments, cutting deficits and keeping the economic burden of debt low. The budget's investments are more than fully paid for through tax code reforms requiring corporations and the wealthiest Americans to pay their fair share, closing loopholes and improving tax administration. It's no secret that I'm keenly focused on moving forward on the global agreement on the international tax reform, including a global minimum tax that will level the playing field and raise crucial revenues to benefit people around the world. Last fall, 137 countries, representing nearly 95% of the world's GDP, agreed on a deal that will stabilize our tax systems, provide resources to invest in security and respond to crises like COVID-19, and ensure corporations fairly share the burden of financing government. I'm hopeful that Congress will also implement this global minimum tax as part of its legislative agenda.
Could you talk a little bit more about what we should be doing to help bring those prices down?
So let me say, I think that bringing inflation down should be our #1 priority, and President Biden, in an op-ed on inflation in recent remarks, has indicated that it is our top priority. We do have to recognize the Federal Reserve is charged, has an important role to play, and they're committed to doing what it takes to bring inflation down. And President Biden is strongly supportive of the independence of the Fed and getting out of the way and giving them the room to do what they need to do. I think we can complement that by deficit reduction.
We are trying to send a price signal in a competition innovation bill to get America's investments in semiconductors up to a level that will show people that we are going to have a domestic supply and that we are going to be on the cutting edge of the next generation of chips, while also dealing with the legacy shortage that exists in automobiles. The problem is our colleagues here don't understand the international competition and how fast they're moving to make the same investments. How critical is it that do you think that we get this done in this work period?
I think this is a national security issue as well as an economic issue, and I think USICA is a very important bill that I would very much like to see passed. We found ourselves in an almost unimaginable situation where the pandemic resulted in such an explosion of demand for chips globally as people switched increasingly to digital work and communications, that our auto factories found themselves unable to get the chips. And so here you have something that's caused a significant piece of the inflation we face that really results from structural shifts induced by the pandemic and insufficient capacity at home to build semiconductors. So I think this is a critically important investment.
So just to be clear on that point, you're saying the chip shortage has added to our inflation woes? And
Absolutely. Look, believe about a third of U.S. inflation is new and used cars, and manufacturers have been forced to actually cut production of cars when they face absolutely record demand for those vehicles, and it is all due to a shortage of semiconductors.
Very welcome back to the committee. I'm going to talk a little bit about a subject on which you and I disagree.